Ladies and gentlemen,
I want to know, can you find your mind?
Welcome to Love Your Brain.
Hello, beautiful people. My name is Eric.
My name is Dave, and to paraphrase Frank Zappa, to all the beautiful people out there, there's more of us ugly mothers than there are of you. Welcome to Love Your Brain, a podcast of indeterminate scope.
Indeterminate scope.
How you doing today, Eric?
I am doing. Actually, you know what? It's been a tough day, but right now, I am very excited. I'm present in this moment with you to have a conversation about. I'm not even sure what, but I'm looking forward to it. How are you, Dave?
Well, interestingly enough, remember last time I had a migraine?
Mm-hmm.
I got one about 10 times the size of it today.
Okay.
Today we got a weather system that's moving out, and this would be the same one that had wreaked some real havoc in the south with tornadoes and such. So it's a real low pressure system, and now it's going out, and the transition always knocks me on my butt, and so I got a migraine today. Anyway, and but I'm kind of used to riding with it, you know. One of the we talk a lot about thoughts and stuff. We don't talk a lot about feeling last time. Before we go into that, I want to say quickly, we're not experts on most of the stuff that we talk about.
That is for sure.
You know, I am simply, I don't want to give any impression other than the fact that I'm just a guy who practices Buddhism, and most of what I say, it's already gone through the Dave filter, so
Yep.
consider the source.
Yep.
But we're not experts. We're people who are talking about some stuff that are important in our lives.
Yeah, the only expert thing that the only thing that I have expertise in is myself, and I think sometimes even then I'm an amateur at that. I'm still in discovery about that whole topic, but we don't claim to have any degrees in anything that we speak of. We're just speaking from our experience, from our observation. I know for myself, I'm speaking from my heart, and we hope you all enjoy.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. One of the things I wanted to say earlier was that we didn't talk much about feelings, right? And I know you and I talked sometime between last recording and this recording, and I was talking about how, human beings are walking sensory units. Mm-hmm. We feel the hot, we feel the cold, we feel the pressure, we see, we hear, we smell, we taste, we can feel, we have a sense of balance, et cetera, et cetera. So we get all of this input. And sometimes you just pick up on things sometimes, and I'm sure there's a million school of thoughts on it. It could be nonverbal communications. It could be energies. It could be a lot of stuff. But I bring it up because you came in here and it was like somebody had stuck a battery, like a 9-volt, right up your butt. You could tell that there was some energy coursing through you as we came in here tonight.
Yeah.
Whether or not we had talked before or not, you could just see it. It could also be that I know you.
You do.
So that's one of the first things I picked up on today.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that life is over and under and up and down, sunshine and thunder, a laugh and a frown. And that's the roller coaster that I ride, brother. I don't know about you. And I don't like to ever think that I have good days or bad days. I just have days. And sometimes those days are filled with peaks in the roller coaster, and other times they're filled with the valleys, and sometimes it's that like going up, that anticipation. But today's been a roller coaster ride of, certain personal things going on that actually are very appropriate to, I think, some of the topics that we're going to bring up tonight. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you got an idea what you want to bring up. That's for sure.
Well, hint, hint.
I'm usually just riding, skating in here.
Yeah.
I keep talking until it makes sense.
Well, I appreciate what you say, and I would say 50% of the time I know what you're saying. No, that's not true.
No, I mean, I realize I get I try to describe the images in my head. And I remember reading something from, it was a quote from John Lennon, and talk about paraphrasing. I'm probably going to be roughly accurate, but
You're about to
that
botch
he
it.
thought he was insane until he started to learn about surrealism. And he fell in love with Dali's paintings, and all of a sudden he realized the images in his head weren't just insanity. And when he made that breakthrough, that's when you started getting some of the lyrics in like Sgt. Pepper's and stuff,
Yeah.
And
That's when the
that's
Beatles got good.
yeah, and that's, I've always been extremely visual thinking, and sometimes I have to compare stuff, and so I come out with the most ludicrous freaking that stuff sometimes. But it makes sense to me, man.
No, I was joking. I know you well, and I also know
Oh, I'm not.
I know you well, and I appreciate the way that your mind works. That's why we're doing this, man. That's why I'm happy to be here. But yeah, what would you like to talk about tonight, Dave?
Well, we could pretend I didn't say, you should talk about that thing you really want to talk about. So I'm going to be about as real as I can say and say, Eric, there's something that you mentioned at the very beginning of the first episode about one of the stuff you really wanted to talk a lot about. And I've read a few things in between that recording and this recording, and it's this thing you mentioned called heart space.
Heart space.
And the reason I want to hear about it, and so I will admittedly say stuff that sounds,
Hippy dippy.
oh no, forget it. I followed the Dead for years.
Yeah.
I like hippy dippy.
Yeah.
No, this leans more towards flaky.
Flaky.
Flaky, or let's go with flaky. And I'm like, so, well, there's hippy dippy, and then there's another level that doesn't necessarily, I don't know. Yeah. So now that's just the way my mind is, and it's not meant to be an insult, but something like a word like that, I immediately like. I have pictures in my head, much like if you're talking about a 12-step meeting to somebody who's never been around them, they're going to picture exactly what they see on a TV show,
Right. Right.
So with heart space, I was already assuming.
You're assuming some flaky stuff.
Well, we start off with pictures in our heads about stuff,
Yeah.
we
Contempt
learn,
prior to investigation, right?
well, you learn a word,
Or a phrase.
something you associate with it,
Yeah.
to this day. So I remember a cartoon, it was like a Looney Tunes cartoon. It was something about a gorilla at large. And he's running around, it might have been a Sylvester and Tweety. And he was running around.
Looney Tunes stuff.
Yeah. And to this day, I can't see a sign for alderman at large without giggling. Right?
It's stuck.
There's things that we learn and we take with us. And it unfortunately oftentimes
frames how
is-
we view another
exactly,
thing.
yeah,
that-
it's like the
that we
scaffolding.
associate with.
It's like the scaffolding that I will then go toward
Right.
that particular thing with.
It's the
'cause
it's the nearest association that reminds you of that. It's like when I'm listening to music and I'm like, oh, that band sounds like this band and this band and this band combined together. Instead of just being like, wow, that's just that band doing their thing. I have a very associative mind. I think a lot of humans do. And with that associative mind, it's almost like you're filtering this new thing through your past experience, and you might be missing out. You might be missing out on what's actually being brought forth or presented.
Absolutely. I mean, if you honestly think about the phrase open mind, right? How open are we in particular, right?
Right.
So a number of years ago, I realized I didn't own a dictionary. This is back before them internets. And
Where like we used to, our parents would buy us encyclopedias, so we would be smart in school before AI wrote our papers for us.
my parents were more concerned about getting me to school. So, yeah, no, seriously, that was horrible.
I'm not surprised.
And so the migraine does stuff like you saw last week. I was like building up to something,
Momentum.
and then I just wrote it right off the cliff, and I have no idea what I was talking
Yeah.
about. And that's exactly where I am right now. Oh yeah, we were talking about you learn this stuff, and so yes, of course, we don't have an open mind often. We build our own reality on things like that. You know, and that's the stuff we carry around with us, good or bad. You know, we all of a sudden find ourselves in a situation that, you know, makes you anxious, makes you a little twitchy, not sure why. You know, ultimately, there's probably something going on, maybe an association.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not much to say that there's, you know, external forces acting on me causing that to happen, unless of course there is, you know, subsonic frequencies, things like that. But
Right.
you know, for the most part, ain't gonna happen around here.
So I like that you're saying what you're saying, because it relates to last episode where I started to talk about stories, narratives, and scripts, and you had some questions about that. I don't know if that stuff sounded flaky to you as well, but I would like to elaborate a little bit more on that topic, because you've already brought it up.
Sure.
Okay.
I just want to say that in between that recording and this recording, I had a very similar conversation about that when the person started using the term stories. And I kind of was like, all right, let me just explain something about me and we'll get that out of the way. So, go ahead.
Yeah, no. When I talk about stories, narratives, and scripts, what I'm referring to really is the moments in our lives, typically when we're younger, especially when we're in that stage of complete innocence, where I think like a child for the first few months doesn't even know the difference between itself and its mother. Like it literally perceives itself as its mother. But as time goes on and we get older, you know, there's moments where we realize like, holy shit, this isn't always smooth all the time. Something's wrong right now. Like someone just got mad. And, you know, these extreme moments, and I'm careful to use the trigger word trauma, because I think it's a word that
People have a lot of hangups about it. Yeah,
right. So
exactly the point of this conversation.
right. So you know, I won't use instead of using that word, I'll just say like very powerful human experiences. We all have them going through life, starting when we're younger, and they could be, you know, experiences where, you know, you see a parent not being in control, and it is very difficult to sit with. So what we do is we typically will figure out a way to survive that situation and to explain that situation by creating some type of a story that's around it. Other situations, like a kid walking in to third grade lunchroom and not knowing where to sit, not knowing what table's going to accept him. What kind of a narrative is formed in that particular situation. So I've been doing shadow work coaching for a couple of years now, and that's
Shadow work?
shadow work.
Not like shadow boxing.
Not like shadow boxing. How about we not talk about shadow work until I finish the narrative thing, and then I'll explain.
You brought it up.
Let's just say it's a different way of saying life coaching, which I don't really prefer that title and don't really like.
Got it. You're undercover. I get it.
Okay. So when I work with clients, we really pinpoint the origins of a lot of these narratives, these stories, or these scripts that were formed when they were younger or in early adulthood that really were such a significant life experience that they're still looking through the lens of that experience at the current present moment. And that, by looking through the lens of that narrative, that's where we get the preconceived notions, that's where we get the associative mind that is making connections that may or may not be there. Go ahead.
Got a question for you.
Shoot.
And I can't find the right time to ask this. So
The right time is now, Dave.
Well, you were in the middle of a sentence. My mommy brought me up not to interrupt.
Well, this is you. This is
So,
you, buddy. Have at it.
No, so you've mentioned multiple times you build a story around something, right? Well, what are you building it around in this situation?
A powerful experience.
No, let me say it this way. What is the you that you're building this story for prior to that?
Probably that's a great question, and I would say it's part of what strengthens this thing we call ego, right?
And when we're using ego, we're talking like Freudian ego.
Well, he was a little crazy. He was a little wackadoodle, but I mean,
I think that would be the modern understanding
Right.
of it. I think,
Right.
but that's why I'm trying to make sure because, again, I study some Eastern philosophy, and the ego is not always such a bad thing, depending on.
and I don't think that it is at all.
And yet, it is something that has to be continually challenged, deconstructed,
Yes,
destroyed, rebuilt.
yes,
Because I mean, yeah, in my own experience of that is that I can mark probably 4 times in my life when who I was, what I was, something happened, an experience of some sort that was on such scale that I was not the same person afterwards.
for good or bad. Or
For good or bad,
or
I just was a new person, and I didn't understand most of this then. So you just kind of pick up and move on. And if you're traumatized, you act out of trauma, sometimes more good than bad, anger, things like that, acting out
Right.
of trauma. And then, of course, the repercussions that come back on you, you try to protect yourself. You get defenses put up, you act out again because of these defenses. And so
Yeah.
this kind of reoccurring thing that happens that can, if you're not paying attention of it, turn your life to crap.
Well, you're making a good point. There are narratives that serve, and there are those that do not. And the coaching that I've done with my clients is to really pinpoint the narratives that do not serve, the narratives that are getting in the way, that are constantly showing up in relationships where the client is maybe experiencing or seeing something occurring that might not actually be happening, because of past experience, because of this very powerful lens that was created at some point in early life that is showing up now, that's blocking them from having true personal freedom and is getting in the way of inventing real possibility in their lives. Because that's the work that I did for many years, starting with 12-step land. And that was my introduction to shadow work. And then I've done some other things that have really helped me have a better idea of who I really am and who I'm not. And it's good to know the narratives that keep coming into play that are causing a lot of unnecessary suffering and pain. And those are the ones that I really try to help people pinpoint. Because awareness is the first step to
notice
change.
Most people don't come to look for help for stuff that they consider to be positive.
Right.
No, and I mean, now,
Yeah, it's true.
that in itself can mean whether or not they're positive or not. You know, some people think there are things that they do that are positive that harm other people, but
Yeah.
yeah, people don't often look for help when they think what's going on is positive for them. But
I
yeah,
think it's good to know also.
that requires a major amount of self-awareness.
It definitely does. It definitely does. And I think that for people to have a better practice of general awareness, as in
Like general awareness.
and
I just
Dave
saluted
just
him.
saluted. That's one, another one. When I say general awareness, I mean awareness of your surroundings and also awareness of others around you. Maybe how they're feeling, or the slight affects that are happening with them, or just like putting information together and being like, whoa, wait a second, this is maybe what's going on. I think that what it takes to have strong general awareness, what's required as a prerequisite is to be self-aware, or as self-aware as one can be.
One thing that came to mind when I was reading up on stuff on heart space that struck me. There's something that my teacher often says that her teacher taught her, which is that a bird needs two wings to fly, the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. And I think in order to help people, that's exactly what you need. You can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you have no compassion, you can't help anybody. If you're all compassion and you have no knowledge, you can really do some major harm.
Oh, this is true.
And so the bird needs both wings to fly, and that requires major self-awareness.
Yes.
Which also requires going back and shedding a lot of that crap that you've, alderman at large.
Okay, so remember before when you were like, whoa, shadow work. Whoa, what's that? You basically, hold on, you basically just described it in that last couple sentences. That to me is shadow work.
Okay, so this is the thing, and it's all about these terms, right, that people are using, which is where I get hung up on flakiness. Right? But as I was thinking about it, here's something else that I like, which is that I prefer not to use terminology that is buzzwords, the word of the time, and it will change later, especially in, the mental health industry, self-help stuff. That stuff changes quite a bit.
Sure does.
Right? So I have a problem with that just for the same reason that we started talking about, which is about these prior associations, these prejudices, these going in it with prejudged.
Right. What I just referred to as stories,
So
narratives, and scripts.
this is a thing that I like to do because it keeps me learning, as if I'm not holding on to that stuff. And at the same time, I've got a problem with people adapting a new name for something that I just described, right? Which ultimately makes it more attainable for people currently, because otherwise we'd all still be talking like we're in Victorian times or something.
Right.
So we have to, And of course, this kind of stuff, just in psychology alone, think about the last 100 years.
Oh, it's pretty
Right,
crazy
so-
to think about the last 100 years and how only about 80 or 90 years ago they were doing, might have even been sooner than that. They were doing frontal lobotomies and electroshock
yeah.
therapy and
They still do them
they do
both of those things are still done on a limited basis.
Yeah.
But not like they were doing it before.
No.
I mean, there was actually absolutely no guardrails on lobotomies originally. People had their own methods, their own
Ice pick method.
tools. Yeah.
Stick a thing right up the nasal cavity to the frontal lobe and do a little scraping and all your pain and anxiety will go away. Sign me up.
How the fuck did we get here? Whoops.
First
That's
bleep.
the first
Is that
one.
the first
That's
bleep? Oh, here we go. Congratulations, Dave. You're the first one.
I knew one of us was going to blow it.
You did it.
But yeah, no, that's exactly it. So it's kind of interesting to me that I'm self-aware enough to know that how contradictory that is of me, right? To want to continue to grow that way and always trying to, that's where all the ahs come from when I'm talking, is me trying to find the words to fit together like
You're
a puzzle.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I'm doing it, very actively, and I'm trying to be mindful of my intentions, mindful of my thoughts, mindful of my words, and I've got this wise ass, core
You sure do.
that, did not help me in school, right? Absolutely wise ass. And
I can't imagine it. It's youthful presentation. If the presentation is what it is now at your elderly age.
Elderly.
I can't. If I were to look back at high school and try to picture that, then wow, your teachers must have really enjoyed you a lot.
Well, you know what's weird? I went to
of
Nashua
things.
High.
Yeah.
And there was an assistant principal that time who was known as the disciplinarian. He was the hard ass for the school. And I thought the guy was a riot. I used to talk to him all the time. I was not a jerk necessarily. I was just a wise guy.
Yeah.
Right. And so I would talk to him all the time. And there would be times I'd walk out in the courtyard and he'd be chewing some kid out and he's got his hat on and I would walk by and just take his hat off and keep walking while he was chewing some kid out. And so it's no doubt that years later, like we're talking 25 years later, my daughter was playing basketball on a team that his granddaughter was playing it on.
Really?
And he knew me and he sat right next to me, started nudging me with his elbow. I should probably put in the middle there at some point my mother worked for him.
Yeah.
And
He appreciated you is what I'm getting.
well, when my mother was working there, we had a kid with the same name years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, it's my son. No, this couldn't have been your kid. This kid was, yeah, that's my kid. One day she forgot her lunch. I brought her lunch. He comes out, he sees me. I say hello, I leave. And he walked over to my mom afterwards and went, "Is that your son?" And she went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Yeah, same guy."
Yep.
Same guy. and then years later at the basketball game. So he appreciated me on some level, but I definitely spent a lot of time in detentions and suspensions and other entions.
Yeah.
So that's what I was like, but horrid grades in classes that I did not like. In classes that I did like, they couldn't give me enough,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, to me, that says a lot about the education system in general, but that's a whole other topic. I really think that there's not enough nourishing the strengths of kids and in this standardized way of kind of forcing.
It doesn't seem to be for most teachers. I mean, I worked in schools for years, and it seems like for most teachers, they'd prefer to be able to do, to some extent, some flexibility too.
Yeah, it's a system.
There's too much rigidity built in the system, and rigidity is
Wow.
usually built upon fear of legal consequences, and so the more people get sued.
Well, it's
the more
also
they-
standardization, and it's conditioning. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah,
Let's not go
on.
there.
No,
Let's
no,
not
no.
go there. I was actually just talking to a teacher the other night. I said, let's not go there, and I continue talking about it. But I was talking to a teacher for about 45 minutes about all this and private schooling and the education system. But anyways, back to shadow work. I believe it was actually coined by Carl Jung. So it isn't this like new flaky hippy dippy thing.
Yeah, he was a flake.
Carl Jung was a flake. Oh boy, I don't know, Dave. There's a lot of things I can agree to
You
disagree
know I'm
with.
joking
I
on
know
that
you're
one.
joking, and I know you. I mean, Carl Jung was not only a prolific philosopher, but also one of the real fathers of psychology, even though he was Freud's protege. His work in archetypes, his work in the subconscious, but that's where I get the term shadow work is really shadow work for me is allowing yourself to go deep into that dark cave that you fear to enter, because that dark cave you fear to enter actually contains all the light you've ever sought after. And shadow work is not for the faint-hearted. It is for human beings that are looking to
So
go ahead.
So very much like coming of age rituals that literally would have taken place in a cave, where they go in and face their fears. There's complete sensory deprivation.
Oh, I know who you're referring to now, too. Like two of our favorite people. Aren't you kind of referring to Joseph Campbell kind of speak right now?
Well, sure, I'm certainly a huge fan of
I'm
Joseph
a big
Campbell.
fan, too, man. Huge fan. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, that would be the kind of coming of age ritual, the kind of, and those are those moments, those peak experiences that happen that mark a milestone, and there's other cultures around the world where you will literally change your name as you go into that new phase. And so that through your life, you may change your name 3, 4, 5, 6 times
and how
because you are a new person
and
to
how
some
awesome
extent.
is that there's a ceremony to explain the next chapter in life or the next forward movement of going from being a boy into a man. There's so many different types of ceremonies that just brought a lot of understanding of one's humanness, but also the progression of life. And I think that
They
what's
were celebrating what they experienced. I mean, people always celebrated what they experienced until, as civilization, as we've kind of gotten closer together, for however many reasons, that people congregate, the more that's happened, and the closer we are together, the less we actually celebrate that stuff. And what just happened to my voice, man?
I don't know. Is there helium balloons in here?
Oh,
You have to adjust your seat, Dave.
I don't know what the heck happened there. I totally lost that
Well,
one.
I didn't, because I just want to make a general statement that I think that that's one of the many things that's lacking in today's world, specifically this society.
Talk about old men. Here we go, bemoaning society.
Oh,
When I was a kid,
I just think
uphill.
that real ceremony is missing.
Oh, yeah, that's where we were. Yes.
Ceremony is missing, and it's in ceremony too that you experience community, and that's the other thing that's missing in today's world is real community. I mean, It wasn't too long ago that I think a lot of us, including myself, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. We just kind of took that community neighborhood experience as we took it for granted. And today, I don't really see kids riding bikes or doing pickup hockey games. Maybe they're doing it. I'm not saying they're not to it, but not to the extent of how it once was before social media and video games and iPads and all these other things. So
I remember watching the interview with Bill Moyers with Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth. And
which but Dave and I both recommend that to anyone that has never seen it. Watch it with an open mind, listen to it, but you can also watch it. I recommend
and the good thing is public television always fundraises off it, so it comes around pretty regularly.
Yeah.
But during this, there was a point where they were talking about the importance of myths as guiding influences on people's lives, which is ultimately, when you think about it, where there goes my voice again. When you think about it, that's exactly what is. We're trying to teach people facts and figures and things to pass tests. Whereas back then, the whole idea was to not only teach you about the stuff in your surroundings and your environment and what you need to live, but you were also getting them in the way that they contained a story and a mythology and basically a guiding principle with morality built into it, And so Bill Moyers asks Joseph Campbell, well, what happens when you don't have those kind of myths, those guiding principles in a society? And Joseph Campbell says, look around you. He goes, things are falling apart everywhere because there is no common ground among people. And if you stop and think about it, that is one of the main problems today is common ground among people communicating because they're not getting the same sources of information.
Well, they're also being conditioned into a state of choosing a side, which is the cause of polarization, especially in the United States.
Well,
forget about common ground.
If religion and spirituality is about taking the dualities of our current existence, the up and for the down and the light for the dark, and the male for the female, and all of the dualities of our existence. And when we transcend that, crap, where was I going again? Why is this happening to me? This is a bruiser of a migraine. Oh boy.
It's okay, dude.
No, it's not. That was important.
We're talking about polarization. Lack of common ground.
Oh, yes. And so if the goal
you guys see that? I did a good job there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
The goal of spirituality or living a spiritual life is to try and join in that transcendent, to do away with the dualities and the separations that happen in humanity. Well, then if you're heading in the other direction where you're actually purposely separating from other people, you're getting further and further and further from that transcendent experience. So whether those separating things are news, whether those things are religion, whether those things are politics, national boundaries, race, whether or not you use Android or iPhone. Seriously.
Pepsi or Coke?
These are all things that actually separate people. Have you ever been with somebody who was a Coke fan and you ended up in a Pepsi restaurant? You ever listen to complain about that?
Pepsi, no Coke.
But they're like, all there is Pepsi products here.
Cheeseburger.
Just give me water. No, so
turn over. Am I doing it okay?
Yes, you're doing some Saturday Night Live over there.
Not bad for 45. I think that was Saturday Night Live in the 70s, late 70s?
Yeah, that was Bill Murray.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, man, there's a lot of division in this world today, and I think it has a lot to do with suffering in general. I think
the Buddha would agree.
I think that it's interesting when I heard someone ask me this question before. They said, What's the opposite of addiction? Do you know the opposite of addiction? Or what are your thoughts on the opposite of addiction?
I'm going to let you finish first, because the first thing came to my mind was freedom.
That's great. And I would say that is a beautiful answer. And
The first thing I thought was if I distilled it down to everything, it would be freedom.
Yeah. That's probably the best answer I've ever heard, besides the one that was given to me, which is that the opposite of addiction is connection. Connection to what? Connection to self, like through shadow work, real self, real deep, like the skeletons in the closet and the dead bodies that we bury in the basement, that type of shadow work. Shh. And so when I think about, that being the opposite of addiction, the first thing I think that comes to mind for people when they hear the term addiction is like drugs and alcohol. Well, there's other things that we're addicted to.
Yeah.
Like thinking, like our minds, like
Your phone.
absolutely, like other human beings at times too. And so
Emotions.
emotions, addicted to emotions as being the motivating catalyst for decision making that disallows for rational, clear sight of what's occurring. But we could keep going and going and going with this addiction thing, right?
I was just getting some good ones.
Well, I appreciate it. And there's many more. The list goes on. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, if the opposite of addiction is connection, how do you really get connection? Through other people, like through community. And so, I think it just supports what we're talking about, that, I think a lot of the reason why people feel so disconnected, isolated, there's so much division, is because we are addicted to labels, and we're addicted to, titles, and I'm a this, I'm a that, I bleed blue, I bleed red, pro this, pro that, and they're missing out on just the fact that you're a human being. And that the way to really experience, at least for me, the way that I really experience the true essence of my humanness is when I'm with other human beings, because then I can be human with other human beings. Dave's just staring at me. Was that some flaky stuff? Or
No, that wasn't flaky. I was trying to collect my thoughts, which, an audio only format's not always great.
we need to get the visual of this.
Yeah, I mean, if we could steal the Jeopardy theme, and when Dave stops to think,
Do 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 do.
but no, I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with all of it.
Of course you don't.
I spend a great deal of time. Well, I wouldn't say alone, because I had a couple of dogs with me, but I spend a great deal of time by myself. I'm not on social media, so I don't see what everybody's posting. I'm not posting, so people don't see me. Nobody picks up a phone anymore to just call somebody, right? Sometimes people think to text if it's not a meme, right? And so by my own particular choices not to connect through things like social media and such, I automatically kind of distanced myself a little bit. And it just naturally, I started to realize that what really mattered is if you integrate yourself into your world. And I realized that the world didn't necessarily have to be large, right? I mean, you can travel the planet. You can travel outside of the planet. You can travel in our country. You can do all kinds of stuff.
That one, but anyways.
And you can spend a lifetime getting to know all the plants and fungi and fauna that's in your neighborhood.
That community, yes.
That's in your neighborhood, right? And I started to learn how to look at the stuff around me in a completely different way. And with that came, habits that I would use to kind of make it new for me each time. Obviously, I'd be looking at different things. I'd study on different things. I'm lucky enough. I've got some pretty decent birds in my area too. So pileated woodpeckers.
Yeah, when we were out on your
red-tailed
deck the
hawk,
other day, you were like really paying close attention to the tweets.
Yeah, I was.
Not on Twitter, but in the trees.
That's
I'm like picking up on your humor. I'm like emulating Dave humor now. Uh-oh. You become the people you surround yourself with. Choose wisely.
Yes.
He's rubbing his
I'm
hands
rubbing
like
my
the evil
hands together,
genius.
yes. I could touch my fingers together. Smithers, Kenny. No, but I that's just each time you derail me tonight, it's harder and harder for me to get up.
Yeah.
And it's funny because what that is again, this kind of internal storm in your brain as the migraine. Sometimes it takes away my words, right? Sometimes I feel it takes away my balance, and sometimes I just get stupid, and I just forget where I'm at. I forget what I was doing, and so that's happened a few times tonight.
I would never ever put the term stupid as being a characteristic or trait of you. I'd say you get derailed sometimes.
No, I just mean to me, I feel like I lose about 50 IQ points.
In a moment. And then you're back.
No, for like 2 days.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't like that for you.
Anyway, that's why I'm often by myself and checking out other things. And so I find myself, more hyper-focused on certain details of just the environment around me. You know?
And in a way I now see that as also your community.
Exactly. And so, but, I also have, years of living the life that I lived. And when you're isolated for certain periods of time and you're doing internal work on yourself, you get certain senses heightened, which is why when we came back into this room tonight, I could sense the twitch in you.
Yeah.
And now
I appreciate that and love you for that, man. To like actually know me that well, where you're that tuned into me.
Well, here's the other part: is I'm looking at you now. Your shoulders are slumped.
Yep.
You're more relaxed.
Yep.
You can see it in your eyes.
Yeah.
Because the eyes obviously is where so much of it. You can see fanger. We can see anger. You can see fear. You can see, confusion. You can see that in the eye, and of course, then there's the body language, and just it's different. Like in the last almost, we're almost out of time, and in that period of time,
how did that happen?
In that period of time, I've watched that whole thing happen. And in our conversation, you can tell how much more relaxed it is now.
Yeah, Dave. Thank you, brother.
This has been a fantastic episode. It's been a little bit different.
And it went places that I didn't know where. I didn't expect us to go to certain places, but that's the great mystery, and mystery is beautiful. Is sometimes you don't know what the unknown has to offer, but it's good to step into the unknown. And I really think for me, that's facing fear. That's the whole idea that, freedom begins where my comfort zone ends. And doing this is not comfortable until it is.
I was just going to say that's that whole indeterminate scope thing, but okay, you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you bring us home?
Why don't I bring us home? I'll bring us home with speaking a little bit about something that we were going to plan on talking about. And I think maybe we'll elaborate later on in another episode, which is heart space.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, and here we are with 1 minute left. So you're just gonna have to be silent while I give a quick rendition of what heart space is to me. Heart space is the place that I go to separate myself from my mind and my brain. My mind and my brain are where I can conceive of ideas, even ideas of love and gratitude, which I refer to as higher states of consciousness or higher states of being. But it's only in my heart that I'm able to experience those higher states of being. So that's what heart space is, and I think it's an important piece to the conversation about,
You didn't leave me any time to. Okay,
Good.
that's it for tonight. We'll see you next time on Love Your Brain.
Thanks for listening, and until next time. Oh, wrong setting.
That's better. Thanks for listening, and until next time, don't forget to love your brain.